So you driving the red Mini Cooper in the film?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. With Michael Caine.
Yeah, and Dominic was your character.
Dominic was my name in the movie.
But you kind of ended up in the film sort of by accident, is that right?
Well, totally accident, really. I was taken on to do the stunt driving in the movie and to supply the cars. So I'm a car person, that was my business. And I was running around picking up the cars, buying the E-Types and the Aston. And somebody had discovered Remy Julien, who really was the king of all the stuntmen. I mean, to this day, he's done all the Bond movies. There's nobody to compare with Remy Julien, even to now, although he's retired. And they suddenly said, oh, we're going to use Remy Julien. I thought, oh, okay. So they didn't know what to do with me because I was already under contract. I had money coming to me, and so instead of wasting their money and my time, they gave me the part of Dominic. And it's the only time I've ever acted in any movie ever, and I probably shan't do it again. But Michael Dealey, who's the producer of The Italian Job, had produced Robbery, and he was very pleased, luckily, with the work I'd done, because I had to find the exact cars. I went all around the police, got the photographs of the robbery, got everything, and I duplicated every vehicle properly. It wasn't just, oh, we'll have a Land Rover or we'll have this. They were exact replicas of the robbery cars, and it went quite well. And he offered me this film in the beginning. He said, would you like to do this one? And of course I said, yes, I'd love to. I think in my first script, the Lamborghini was an ISO Revolta. There were things that were changed, and at the time, the Miura was the hot thing, and we wanted the business, and we decided to have a Miura. But the problem was it was so new, to get a wrecked one or wreck one was too expensive. And luckily we found the wrecked one, and then we doubled that wrecked one for the car you see in the beginning of the movie.
So yeah, this part sort of fascinates me. So the Minis were integral to the story, but were they originally going to be Fiat 500s or something?
They were never going to be Fiat 500s, other than Agnelli, who gave us the permission to shoot here in Turin.
De facto king of Turin, really, Gianni Agnelli, wasn't he?
Exactly. He had tried to bribe Michael Dealey to use Fiats by offering him a new Ferrari and some money to use Fiat 500s. But obviously anybody who's seen the film, it's integral to the film. It couldn't possibly be. And as tempting as it was for Michael, it was a non-starter.
Your job was to source all the cars to The Italian Job?
That's correct, yes.
So where do you start?
Okay, well, to be fair, my father found the coach. I didn't find the coach. I sent him off somewhere. I think he found it in Barnet or somewhere like that and brought it back, But all the other cars, we'd done a deal. I use the term loosely, a deal with BMC for 6 Minis to be loaned while we were doing the movie. And the other ones I bought, the E-Types, I bought 4 for £500 each. So £2,000 got you 4 E-Types in those days, which people don't realise, because they say, how could you leave that car? Why did you abandon it? Well, it would cost nearly that to get it home, especially after we'd smashed it up and it wasn't worth anything.
You said to me earlier on today as well that you were a bit of a dandy back then as well. Were you like a proper scenester or a hipster,
Yeah, I was
mod?
more mod, certainly more mod than rocker, but I used to go to Mr. Fish and get suits and big ties and all that trendy stuff at the time.
Yeah.
I wasn't Dougie Hayward like Michael Caine was in the movie, but I had some pretty wild clothes at the time.
And you were only 20 when you worked in The Italian Job?
20, yes, 20. That's right.
You see, it seems extraordinary to me that a young man would be given this massive responsibility.
Well,
I guess that's how it was back then.
I was very pleased to have the responsibility, and I got on with it and did it, and that's what you did. Just to get hold of it and go with it.
Yeah.
And I'd done the same thing on Robbery, so I didn't know anything else.
Sure. What do you remember about? There's a famous. In fact, there's a mini part over here somewhere that has the picture of Michael. It's a very famous still from the film, and the guy beside him with a helmet on in the red, and that's you. What do you think when you look at that now? There's someone out here who's put that on the side of their car.
It's so odd to walk up to someone's car and see your face on it from 50 years ago. And no matter how you try and reason it just doesn't make any sense. What am I doing on that guy's car over there 50 years later? It's mad. We had a great deal of fun. We were all in our 20s. You know, there's not only the drivers, but the sort of gang. We hung out together. We had a ball here. We were running around with money in our pockets, being reasonably naughty, having a good time.
And what about let's talk about the famous driving scenes. I mean, I guess there are two, perhaps. Well, I mean, they're all iconic.
Yes.
The jump.
Okay, the jump is Remy Julian, it's not me, and not only is it him, it's through him that it even exists. It was his idea. It was so dangerous. I mean, these buildings around here give you an idea of the height we were at, and the distance was 60 feet. For about a week, Remy had been practicing it on an airfield or something, just with little ramps and measuring and doing the speed and doing it again and backwards and forwards. And he then calculated the speed it had to be, the distance they were going to get, and the angle of the ramp. That was all pre-calculated. However, you know, the 3 cars were doing it at once.
Yes.
A one-time only affair this was. Now, any one of those 3 cars could have missed. Someone missed a gear, something. It had to be precise. It had to be, I think Remy told me 110 kilometers.
It's a reasonable speed.
Was the exact speed for the jump. He also told me that they all had to go and have a wee before they did the jump to empty their bladders because it's dangerous. It was incredible, and I think I mentioned to you also that Michael Dealey, the film's producer, had a jet standing by and a car down at the bottom of where we were shooting in case it went wrong, because if it did go wrong, he was responsible, just like Frank Williams with Senna. And he had the old jet standing there on the airport ready to go, because it was if this went wrong, you weren't going to break your finger. You weren't going to break your finger. We had plenty of practice at Handbrake Turns, and Remy also taught us how to, you know, the ballet scene that got cut.
Yeah.
Well, what you did with that is you did a handbrake turn, and whilst you're in the middle of the handbrake turn, you engage reverse, and then reverse spin out of the handbrake turn. Which was a Remy Julian trick, you know.
Italy is wonderfully chaotic. That's a better way of putting it.
Okay.
And the Italian job is about creating chaos.
Yes.
And every time I watch the film, I just marvel at how it was controlled and corralled.
We did create major chaos. We had 300 cars a day as extras, which would drive into town. They'd be paid whatever they were paid, say a tenner each a day or something, and that was enough to cause the biggest traffic jam you've ever seen in your life, because we'd come into this square, fill it up, and nobody could go in any direction. So gradually this thing grew and we were here all day shooting.
Yeah.
Without Agnelli, who had really given us the carte blanche, he'd given us the go, and nobody questioned Agnelli, it wouldn't have happened. At the time, it wasn't a box office success. We had moved on to other movies, and I won't say forgotten it. We'd had a great time. You don't forget having a great time, but we carried on with our lives. And I would say it took 3, 4, maybe 5 years before it had become so regular on television. Everybody started to know that film really well. My friends started calling up and asking for Dominic instead of David, and taking the Mickey, and you know, it started to grow. It was like a snowball almost, a rolling snowball, and it just got bigger and bigger all the time. It's phenomenal, really. I was at a dinner one night with my girlfriend, and this guy at the end of the table was going on about how he drove the red Mini in the Italian Job, and I just sat quiet listening while my girlfriend stood it for 10 minutes, and then she put him right.
I love that.
Yeah.